overview for those who have joined us before, and if you haven't, thanks for joining us. We are recording this session because we do share it out for folks who aren't able to make it, or if folks want to go back and review some of the information that might be shared. So just like to make sure folks are aware of that. So we'll let everyone get caught up here in the, all right. So we, today let's kind of walk through the agenda. So I'll start by sharing just a little bit about the OTC workforce strategy, which is the county's efforts to support the workforce needs across the county. We'll hear from Amy Johnson, who is the county's new Workforce Navigator around the Empowered Worker program that we're working to get stood up. And we'll hear from Mindy Sachs, who is an Otter Tail County Probation Officer, and sharing some best practices when hiring second chance workers that she might work with in her area. And then we'll have an employer panel to talk about their experiences and do some myth busting around the second chance workforce. And then certainly we'll have time for Q&A or drop them in the chat while we are, in the presentations as well. So kind of going back to the overview of OTC Works, OTC is not just Otter Tail County. It stands for Opportunities, Training, and Connections. And we think about strategies in those areas in ways that we as the county can help support, again, the workforce needs and thinking about that. So we have 3 action areas under OTC Works that we focus on. So thinking about how can we promote the availability of jobs with family sustaining wages and other workforce resources within the county. How can we help our employers promote their opportunities and help them be better equipped to recruit and retain workers? And then finally, where we spend probably the volume of our time is around creating partnerships to think about how to improve things like occupational readiness, reducing barriers to employment, and then aligning skills for the future workforce needs, whether it's in youth or adult populations in Otter Tail County. So those are things that we use to frame out what the work is that we're advancing. And again, today we want to start with talking about our workforce navigation program and how we got to where we are today. So the idea of an empowered worker program started, probably almost 3 years ago, that we were thinking about what, where could we help, in our realm, where was an opportunity for us to help make a difference. And the idea of the program was to provide training and supportive services to help individuals navigate barriers that they might have to obtaining employment. And so thinking about knowing we have low unemployment and how do we make sure everyone is able to actively participate and fill those jobs that are available across a lot of different sectors. So our first step in understanding is, what else was out there? What were our great partners already doing in this realm? And then think about, where might we be able to fill a gap or be additive to what might already be happening, and understand, again, talk to the providers who are doing this work already within the county, as well as the people who have the lived experience and how they either successfully or maybe not as successfully are able to navigate those barriers they might have, to help, again, understand where we might be able to fill a gap. So then thinking about, again, back to this program, how did we get to where we are today? Because I mentioned in the intro that Amy Johnson is with us as a workforce navigator. So we had an idea of what this would be based on that research and time, but we had to find funding to help to really bring it to life. And so the county was awarded funding from the state of Minnesota, the Department of Employment and Economic Development, through a new program that they offered last year called Drive for 5. And it was really supporting high demand jobs, which we narrowed down into kind of our focus of manufacturing, caring professions, and then the trades, which are areas of high demand in Otter Tail County. So that aligned with what our workforce opportunities were and where we felt we had some great employer engagement in advancing this program. So, so that's how we got to be able to hire a navigator. We did match that state funding with some local one-time dollars that had been made available through the American Rescue Plan. So we had earmarked those dollars a while ago, and in hopes that we would be able to find some matching funds, and we were. So, so we have this 3-year position now. It is funded through, again, a partnership between the state and then some one-time dollars. And we'll be working to identify program participants and thinking about, in that case, knowing we already have those relationships with individuals. We'll talk more about that later, but so the process, right, of identifying the program participants, ensuring that they have work readiness. So thinking about that and understanding what are their competencies from different skills and career aspirations and interests and different assessments, and really help them be prepared to be successful and understand where that support might be needed. And then again, navigating those barriers. Is it transportation? Is it childcare? And just being a general advocate for the success of these individuals to get into filling a need in our workforce, and as well as supporting them in their personal goals. So I mentioned already, kind of focusing on individuals that we are already serving within the county, or that we have a relationship with through either probation or other justice areas, lacking stable housing or limited English proficiency, and then from an income perspective, at or below 200% of our federal poverty guidelines. And those were components of that grant that we applied for. So those are eligibility driven by them. And again, just really trying to support individuals in who might have those barriers to getting into a family sustaining or household sustaining career opportunity. All right, and then Amy, when am I turning over to you?
Sorry. Well, I can take it, Amy.
Okay, sorry. Yep.
No, that's okay.
All right.
Thank you very much for the intro. I'm Amy Johnson, the Workforce Navigator. Excited to be in this role. Idea to fruition. So we're excited to go live with this, hopefully sooner than later. So something to add on the eligibility would be that I would be receiving referrals internally at Otter Tail County from caseworkers, social workers, and probation agents within our human services, public health, probation, and housing departments. And I am able to receive direct referrals from outside of Otter Tail County case management, but the focus really is on those already receiving services from the county. And so, as Amy mentioned earlier, for the skills training of the program participants, MState is our training partner for those programs. And so that deed funding that we received, that actually covers the cost for training. Some of the more popular ones that we talk about a lot are like welding, CNA, EMT, LPN, RN, and even CDL, phlebotomy, and you can see the whole list of them there. So for those participants that are interested in upskilling or getting training in those so that they can have a more family sustaining lifestyle, that's something that I could help them with through that process. And then upon successful completion of those certifications or credentials, then I would help place them at an employer that matches that skill set. And so for our employer partners, really our ask is that you're accepting of our program participants and helping, whether that might be a job shadow, work-based learning experience, internship, or I think what might be most common is employment. And so today we're focused on second chance workers. And as mentioned earlier, this is just one of the populations that I'll be helping to navigate the workforce. And I'll also be assisting those already receiving services, supporting economic assistance, behavioral health, children and families, disabilities, child support, housing assistance, and more. So we'll have a great variety of population, focusing today on second chance workers. I found some information that I'd like to share. It's from our friends at Deed. And so Deed says that having a criminal record is one of the leading barriers to employment for people returning from jail or prison in Minnesota. Criminal records are made public by the Department of Corrections for 15 years following the completion of the sentence, making it even more challenging for people with a past, minor or significant, to re-enter in the community and find gainful employment, despite studies that show that post-incarceration employment reduces recidivism. I'll throw it back to you, Amy B.
Great. So thanks, Amy, for adding a little more context there. So we want our employers to be thinking about, and we'll jump into our conversations too with our additional speakers, but thinking about what you can do to help reduce the barriers for your existing employees as well as prospective employees, and just how from again a workforce lens you can help with that. So, and then if you don't know Amy Johnson, make sure you get further introduced to her as our session goes on today or as time goes forward, because we do want to work with our employer partners and our other service providers, make sure we're continuing to align our work and not being duplicative, and how do we help support each other to make the biggest impact that we can. So just making sure to engage with Amy as you go forward.
And I
Oh, I
can take
believe.
it from here. Yeah, just a quick introduction of Mindy. So, like Amy was kind of talking about today, is a little bit focused on second chance workers, and empowered workers beyond that. But wanted to start with this unique population, knowing that we have some expertise in-house here at Otter Tail County within our probation department, and also have some really engaged employers already doing some of this work with second chance workers. So really wanted to give Mindy an opportunity to kind of share some of her expertise and her work in this area as a probation officer or agent here at the county, being that she does a lot of this work, and hopefully will, with the Workforce Navigator and the Empowered Worker Program, will further be able to support some of her clients. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mindy, just to do kind of an overview, like I said, of her expertise and some of her experience working with these second chance workers. So Mindy, I'll turn it over to you.
I'll be right back. I need to plug in my computer before it
Oh,
dies.
sure. Let's make sure that's taken care of before we start off.
My apologies. I'm Mindy Sachs. I'm probation officer with Otter Tail County. I've worked with the county for 18 years, and I have an adult caseload of gross misdemeanor offenses. I am also from the New York Mills office, so I see more people from New York Mills. And my area is primarily Pelican, Dent, Vergas, Earhart, and then New York Mills and Perham. So I worked with a variety of clients throughout the years. And how I work with my clients when they want to identify different employees to work for is they're pretty much kind of on their own for applying for jobs and so forth. However, we do talk about different companies in the area, probably more specifically in Perham, just because that's the area that I supervise, such as, Lund's, IFS, Shears, Tuffy's, Bongards, and so forth. A lot of times I will suggest that my clients go to like temp agencies to apply for jobs too, whether that's Doherty or Spirion. Basically what I do is I support and encourage employment, and also I will help with my clients like to practice interviews, and also talk about, for interview stuff is like dress appropriately and so forth kind of deal. So I think it is important for employers to hire second chance workers, because a lot of times the second chance workers are more loyal, productive, and likely to be promoted. They know they've been given a second chance and an opportunity, and they don't want to lose it. Research does show that second chance employers have lower turnover rates, which saves the company money. So by having a successful employment experience, it helps my clients in giving them stability and structure for their time. It also gives them obviously income, which is less stress for them when they're able to pay their bills and housing and so forth. Also, my clients, when they are working, they feel better about themselves. They feel like they've accomplished something and that they're going somewhere kind of deal. I think it is important to accommodate them because by losing or firing an employee, you lose their knowledge and experience for the job. They may go to a next competitor, and it also may upset other coworkers for letting them go. Ways that my clients can be accommodated. I know sometimes that my clients are either working night shift. Sometimes, if they could be accommodated by a change of shift to day shift. I know that's not always available. But that way they're able to attend different programs that they're to attend. My clients can be attending like any kind of a chemical dependency treatment program or domestic violence program or just simple mental health therapy. A lot of those are offered during the day or early evening hours. So there are times that they may need to either leave early for treatment or just take a break from work in order to attend a virtual treatment program. Or I have had people like leave work for a period of time and go to outpatient chemical dependency treatment program and then return to work when that treatment program is done. Obviously, they don't get paid for those hours that they're gone, but at least they're able to attend their treatment program. And also there's like court hearings. Sometimes there's virtual court hearings that they need to just take a break from work from. It's kind of nice option to be able to attend virtually. At least we don't have the travel time. And I just, it's giving an employee a second chance, my opinion, isn't a sign of weakness, but a sign of mercy. And I guess that's all I have, unless there's questions.
Yeah, thanks, Mindy. I think, and we'll hear from a couple of employers that I know you recommended when we asked, who is second chance, who is working with your second chance population that you recommended them. But I guess maybe what would be for an employer who hasn't engaged with second chance workers, like what would be the first step or first piece of advice that you would give them? And I know you work very closely with that employer to some extent, as much as you can, because I know that's a little bit outside of, you've got lots of other things that you're focusing on when it comes to the probation side of things, and employment is kind of a small sliver of the larger picture. But just for an employer that is thinking about it and hasn't engaged with that second chance population, like what is something easy to get them started?
So I think it's just basically sitting down and having a communication with them and meeting with them to see where they're at in life and so forth, what they've got going on, for whether it's treatment, chemical dependency or domestic violence. I know a lot of people are like my clients are not so, some of them are open to it and employers have been great to support it. Some of them are not so, so open about their personal life kind of stuff, but just having that conversation with them and see right where they're at and, how much they are seeking employment. Some people they've tried hard to apply at different jobs, have been turned down because they haven't had a job for a while based on drug alcohol use and being in treatment for a period of time too. So just kind of to give them a chance. Like I said, a lot of times you'll have a more loyal and more productive employee just because they know they've been given a chance to have a job. They understand the importance of a job so that they're able to meet their needs and housing and so forth.
For sure. Yeah. And Amy Johnson, I'm going to put you on the spot too. So within the first few weeks on the job, you did, I don't know if you want to call it a ride along, but did a kind of a day in the life of a probation agent with Mindy, right? And just in that experience, like what were a couple of the takeaways that you had as you're preparing to work with these individuals and do some of that work? Like, did you have any aha moments or takeaways that were valuable that you learned from Mindy or learned from clients?
Yeah, so coincidentally, that ride along was with Mindy. I learned that probation agents are really fun. They make their work fun and light. And so really every department that I work in too, it's having an open mind. And that experience specifically, we met with a few of Mindy's clients and kind of plugged the idea of, hey, what would you think if you had access to training? Or would you like a welding certificate? Or they were excited and there was a spark and they had hope. And so I think the overall word for this whole program is giving people hope, giving people a chance, an opportunity to empower them.
Yeah,
Can I
and I
ask a
think
quick
that,
question?
oh, for sure. Hi, James.
It's okay. Hi, Sarah. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's great.
I have a question for Mindy. But first, I want to just say I read this stat where it's like there are more people with criminal records in the United States than people who own dogs, and more people with criminal records than people who are married. So, like, this is a pretty
Wow.
nice demographic to like think about with regard to employment. But Mindy, you mentioned something I thought was interesting about the loyalty of these this workforce, and I remember hearing once that a lot of times individuals coming out of incarceration, their parole is employment is part of their parole. Like they need to stay employed. Is that true for Otter Tail County?
So it's a little different for me because I supervise a gross misdemeanor caseload. So a lot of times they will have some jail time that they serve, that jail time and they're given work release and so forth. So that's more of a felony type offense where when they're coming out of a prison or, you know, a long-term incarceration. I don't have experience with that. Our county is changing, so we will get experience with that in January. So,
Okay.
you know, and there, as we blend together with the felony office. So I really can't answer that. You know, we encourage our clients to have jobs just because it's a structure and supervision and you know, like idle hands and idle minds are not always good for people. In
Not
that
for
way it
me.
gives them, yeah. So that way it kind of gives them something to do. Even like with my people that are on disabilities, I encourage them to volunteer at different places in their community too, just because, you know, it's you get around people and you can help out other people and you feel like you've accomplished something that day kind of deal.
Yeah, looks great on a resume.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything
Yep.
you do, Mindy. Thanks for your time, and thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else from the audience have questions? Like I said, Mindy is a great resource, and I'm sure our employers will probably say something similar here when we turn it over to them for a few panel questions. But any questions from Mindy? Just knowing that she's doing some of this on the ground work. If you have any curiosities that you've ever wanted to ask, not to open it up too wide here, Mindy, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but any other questions from the audience before we turn it over here and we'll switch over to from the employer perspective to hear a little bit more from them? All right, well, hearing none, we will switch over and just to get the employer perspective a little bit. And I think I mentioned, so we asked Mindy who are employers that are doing some of this work, that are hiring some of these second chance workers, hiring some of your clients, and doing a good job of engaging them and creating processes that work for creating accommodations that work for them. And two names that came up were Northern Contours here in Fergus Falls and Brunswick or Lund Boats in New York Mills. And so we have Emily Sievertson from Northern Contours on and Carly Carlson from Brunswick on to kind of share that employer perspective with on the ground. What are some of the things that employers can do for these second chance workers? So just to kind of kick things off, curious, Emily and Carly, do maybe just a quick introduction of what your role is at each of your organizations, and then talk about some of the resources that you guys have tapped into that help your team navigate that hiring process for second chance workers. And maybe we'll start with Emily.
Sure. Yep, I can go first. I'm Emily Sievertson with Northern Contours. I am the Director of Corporate Recruitment and Total Compensation for Northern Contours. Have kind of dabbled in a whole bunch of different areas of human resources within the department, and am very lucky to have worked with Amy Johnson. She was our HR generalist for a while. So hearing from her and getting to know that this program was kind of up and off the ground was kind of a really cool full circle moment for us. And I think she's going to be a great asset to the county and to this program. Do you want me to stop at the introduction so Carly can go, or do you want me to keep?
I would say go ahead, share a couple resources. We can dig deeper
Sure.
into that too, but.
Sure. One thing that I know, and I'll also call out Nancy Kugler is on the line as well. She's our current HR generalist, so is working really closely with our employees as well. And some of the resources that we really tap into for all sorts of different needs of our employees is our employee assistance program we use pretty frequently. And being able to utilize this program, I think, is going to give us even more resources in order to engage, the job coach, the probation officer, make sure that there's really great communication so that employees as part of this program can feel really engaged and invested in the process, speaking to that loyalty that Mindy mentioned as well. But we use our employee assistance program. We work with other areas of, I don't know if you would consider it second chance workers, but we use productive alternatives as well. So having the ability to work, we are familiar with working with programs and the agencies and the representative for these types of employees, and we're really excited about what's happening here.
Cool. All right, Carly, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. I am Carly Carlson. I am located in New York Mills. So again, nice to see some familiar faces. I am the HR manager and really echo a lot of what Emily said, but I think partnership is really important and making sure that you have community partners. So we have the opportunity to make these connections, and then also really getting your leadership from top down involved and understanding that everybody does deserve a second chance and things happen, and building those relationships so you can discover what somebody maybe needs. And oftentimes it's simple, right? Of like, I need to check in with my probation officer, or I need to have this meeting, and seeing how we can support them really helps make it successful. And it's awesome to see how these pivotal moments can really just help turn someone around too and motivate them.
And I think, and hopefully you guys would echo this too, that using those resources means you don't have to do it all on your own as the employer, right?
Yeah.
Like you guys don't have to have all the answers. You can lean on probation agents. You can lean on, productive alternatives and some of those other partners that have that greater expertise of what can we do? What do we need to do? So knowing that it's not on you guys to figure out everything.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So moving on to our next question, thinking about that hiring process, I think Mindy kind of talked about too, like, and Amy talked about it as well, having a background that shows up on it, that when you run a background check, those things pop up, right, in your hiring process. And I'm sure there's other things too, but have you implemented anything, any changes within your hiring process that kind of is more supportive or more accommodating or more understanding of those second chance workers? Or is there anything specific that you guys have changed?
I can go first here, if that's okay with Carly. We've always been pretty supported our employees who are in need of that second chance. I think what we look at when we see a background check come back with something specific is it opens up the conversation, right, of what type of support does this employee need to be successful? What can, we look certainly at timing and the degree of the offense and all of those things, but it really opens up more of a conversation with our human resources team, our plant manager, and the candidate to speak to what resources, if this is the right fit, what resources can we provide to you to make sure that we are supporting you in the journey and becoming a good employee, and it opens up those conversations right now on, do you need to attend dependency meetings? Do you need to, how often do you need that support with your probation officer? Do you need us to speak with your probation officer? It opens up, and that can also open up the conversation of what shift are you looking for? If you have these meetings are primarily during the day, let's look at second shift. Would this type of schedule work for you? And so it opens up more conversations so that we can find the right fit for the employee.
Very similar. I'd say one thing that we evolved over time too is we don't look at background checks black and white. So we don't have we don't hire this or we don't hire this in a time frame. Yes, we have some guidelines, but really we have the conversation. Because getting to know maybe a situation, if somebody will open up, but doesn't let you know what they would need for accommodation or the severity of it. And really, again, I feel like shows that partnership from the very beginning that you're having with a candidate versus just going solely off of what might come back on the check.
Sure. Yeah. And that's great to hear because it's different in every situation, right? So
Yep.
it's always good to take that with a, you know, let's learn more, let's have the conversation rather than black and white. Yeah. Just a question in the chat that just popped in that is kind of relevant to this. So, Emily and Carly, would you mind sharing your background check policy? I don't know if that's a specific document, Bridget, that you're talking about, or just kind of general, what you guys, what is that policy?
That's specific written policy. I can look, at our handbook and see, and perhaps share that with the team to send out with the resources afterwards, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yeah. If you're willing to do that, we can send that out and follow up.
Yeah, I'll double check it to make sure that I wouldn't be stepping on any toes by sending that out. But certainly, if I get the green light, I will do that.
Sure. Great.
Just to ad lib a little bit on our policy, we really look at it as would they be in a position in their role if they were to be hired with us to reoffend? That's also a question we always ask of, is there anything in that job, that is connection with it that we feel like they could be in a situation that they could be, a risk is really how
Triggered.
we handle it. Yeah, triggered, yeah.
Sure. Mindy, not to put you on the spot, but do you have anything to add to that? Like thinking about that, likelihood to be put in a unique situation where they're going to reoffend or going to, I don't want to say slip up, that's not the right word, but anything to add on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, it's typically if there's a slip up, I'd assume it's more like alcohol or drug related where they have we usually, for gross misdemeanor cases, you start out at like 5 days jail kind of thing, and then encouraged for possibly another assessment and AA attendance and so forth. That's probably my idea of what would probably be the most common kind of slip up kind of thing. Both us and our court system want people to be employed. We want them to keep their jobs. That's why, the opportunity to have the work release is awesome. There's also times too that they're given community service work in lieu of jail kind of thing too, just so that we can keep them employed.
Sure. All right. Next question for Emily and Carly. What are some of the ways, and you guys talked about this already, but what are some of the ways that you can support or accommodate second chance workers after they're hired? Like I know, Carly, you said in that conversation, once you've seen that on a background check, you guys are having a conversation about, and Emily said this too, like shifts. What is the best option for shifts? Do I need to make time for a check-in with a probation officer? So what are some of those things that you guys do to accommodate those needs?
Well, I already mentioned our employee assistance program. So certainly if we understand that someone has an issue and then are maybe triggered at some point during their employment, we always really lean pretty heavily on our employee assistance program and supporting employees through the completion of that program, in addition to certainly providing the time off that an employee would need to accommodate meetings and whatnot. Keeping in touch, making sure that if there is a need for a little bit more high touch from our human resources team, checking in, making sure they still feel supported. If it were to be a dependency issue, making sure that their mental health is in a good space as well, because one thing leading to the next is certainly a concern in those cases as well. But certainly just keeping communication open, providing the resources that we have available, checking in. Of course, for people who don't want to be helped, there's not much you can do, but we always make ourselves available and provide whatever support that we can.
For us, again, right away in the beginning, we try our hardest to have that open conversation. Understanding sometimes it is uncomfortable, right, for the employee or the applicant, but I always share it's just as comfortable for us as the employer too. So really trying to just start it out with let's be honest and see what you need and continue to let us know, touching base with them. Agree on the EAP or employee assistance program, really reminding people of that too. And again, I can't stress enough about the constant check-ins to make sure that they know that they are supported, and it never hurts to ask. We always say that, like, the worst thing that we could say is, sorry, we can't do that. But we would much rather you ask us than we miss an opportunity to find out that you needed something.
For sure, yeah. And I'll just do a quick shout out to, I know James is on the call from Deed and as a workforce strategy consultant for our region, and they hold monthly Workforce Wednesday calls that are similar to our convenings, but just did one recently about second chance and justice involved workers. And I know there was an employer on that call that kind of had an aha moment and said, an accommodation that we have is we have a conference room, right, that we can use for a probation agent to come on site and have a check-in at work. So rather than an employee having to leave for, 2 hours to drive to a check-in, or to even go step out into the parking lot and have a conversation on the phone, rather than having to do some of that and take additional time away from the job, they create this space on site for that employee and that probation agent to have a conversation, and it takes 20 minutes, and then, they go back to work. So not to, have you guys thought about any of that? Do you do any of that? It seems so simple. Like when I thought of that, I was like, oh, well, yeah, that makes total sense. But anything like that you guys do too?
We have, but even hearing you say it, it's like I need to put more effort into it because brilliant and so simple. But
Right.
yes, we have. But again, we've kind of waited on somebody to ask us, and I think we could come forward and suggest that more often than we do.
Sure.
I was just going to say the same thing as Carly did there, that we have the space and we have the ability, but I think bringing that forward as an option instead of waiting for it to be asked is definitely a step that we could take to be more accommodating.
For sure. Okay, so one of the other things that we asked both Emily and Carly before today was kind of around those myths that Amy mentioned as well. And everyone's kind of touched on it a little bit, but in terms of like if we had to bust a myth about hiring second chance workers, I think one of those that is out there is people with a criminal record are less reliable or contribute to more turnover. And I think we heard Mindy say like the loyalty in that population is really, really a big thing. So any experience with that? Offer any opinions on that myth? Do you feel like that is a myth? Do you feel like it's the opposite of that?
Yeah, I would say the opposite as well. I have found that anybody that you are helping through some sort of process, right, to help them get back on their feet or through a hard time or anything like that, whether it be immigration, dependency, disability, or probation in this case, you see that loyalty and you see that connection grow between the employee and the employer. They're typically more communicative, more productive. They feel a buy-in with the company and the process because they feel supported in their role. So definitely, I just had the conversation. We have quite a few immigrant workers at our plant up in Canada, and our plant manager up there consistently says how they are the hardest working employees that he has because he knows that we are giving them the chance to be able to legally work in Canada. And so I see the same thing with really any employee that you are working through some sort of process or supporting. And so, yes, I would say that's a myth. I can certainly see that it would be the first thing to pop into your head if you're, say we're going to hire this criminal, but I believe the opposite is true in most cases.
I 100% agree with everything that Emily said. I definitely think it's a myth, and I think you quickly would have examples that you'd be like, yep, okay, that you would learn that they are a myth. And, you know, just because maybe somebody is a second chance worker, I always think too, you don't know also maybe somebody, we don't always know people's journeys. And so really just having the open-mindedness is really important from everybody and from leadership too, to go into it and thinking, you never know a day in the life, and everyone deserves that opportunity.
For sure. I think one of the other common ones that comes up or that you might hear a lot or make an assumption with is hiring someone with a criminal record will create problems on the job, right? Like, is there an added risk of hiring someone with a criminal record? And it probably depends on what that record looks like or what their background or experience has been. But any, is that true? Is that a myth? Like, how do you guys handle some of that risk? And maybe it's assumed risk.
I would challenge that myth into saying that those employees are maybe a little bit more under a microscope and so less likely to cause problems. I would show you some
Okay.
of our non-employees without a criminal history that cause a whole bunch of problems. But yeah, I think just that, having been caught and maybe feeling a little bit more under the microscope, understanding that they're being given a second chance, if they have a probation officer, certainly someone else to report to, I think can make them even less likely to cause whatever problem seems to be happening.
Sure. Yeah.
Agree. Absolutely. I think that's also why we look at our background checks, where we question, like, will this job put them in a situation? And I think, again, there's this myth and they're under this microscope, but let's just use an example. If somebody has a DUI, but they're in a position where they're not driving, why? How could that, affect it? And so again, it's just trying to break that barrier of any judgment too.
For sure. Yeah. Judgment is a big thing, right? Amy Hochraber, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I know I'm not a part of the program, but it sounds like amazing success stories. And I just wanted to say that we have a partnership just like this in Moorhead, in the Fargo-Moorhead area with CAP-LP, which is like the Mojave of Otter Tail. And we just recently did a recently released justice-involved welding cohort, and the employees love their employees. They love the people that we did a speed interviewing with, and they're fully employed. But the one thing that I want to tell all the businesses is that Amy Johnson, another Amy, there's a lot of us, is that Amy Johnson is going to be that mentor and help, like CAP-LP or the Mojaves. And so not only do you have a strong program right now that Lund Boats and Northern Contours has, but you're also going to have that wraparound service that Amy's going to provide. So that's just like the icing on the cake of this program that you guys are doing. So I just wanted to give kudos to the businesses and for Amy Johnson and Otter Tail County, because this program works in the Fargo-Moorhead area, and I'm so excited to be part of it in Otter Tail County.
Can I just say I love the term justice involved versus another term. Recently incarcerated. I like the term justice involved a lot better.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm taking that. I wrote it down.
It's a wonderful opportunity, and I know we've been working together for many years trying to get this launched, and it's just a wonderful opportunity. And to let you know that we've done a lot of fail forward and learning opportunities that we will bring towards Otter Tail County that we won't have to work through. So it's really exciting to be able to have this foundation to bring towards Otter Tail County. But,
yeah, thanks, Amy. And we definitely used some of the program in Moorhead as a little bit of inspiration and have evolved it right to really tailor it to Otter Tail County. And then Emily, to your comment, we've had a lot of conversations even recently about, is it second chance? Is it justice involved? Is it, Amy and I said something the other day and now I'm forgetting the third one, but like there's all of these different ways to talk about it beyond, well, they have a criminal record, right? Yeah. Like there's so much more positive ways to orient that. In even just our conversations with leadership, with other staff on, at your place of work. So I think it really helps to start to reorient how we talk about that too. So Well, we have a little bit of time for questions here at the end, and I have one more just from an advice perspective. But if anyone from the audience has questions for our two employers on, or Amy Johnson or Mindy, feel free to unmute and ask, or drop it in the chat and ask. And I'll ask my last question while you're thinking of those. Emily and Carly, what is your advice? And I asked a similar question of Mindy, but what is your advice for employers that are considering a more friendly approach to second chance workers?
I have to give my coworker, Nancy Kugler, credit for this response. I kind of sent her the questions ahead of time and was like, do you have any input just for, for some nuggets for me to speak to? And her response to that one was, everyone has different problems at different times in their life, and no one is immune to life's difficulties or problems that may happen, but how we lend a helping hand that changes their outlook and their perspective on life. And I thought that was beautiful. Thank you, Nancy.
Great answer. Yeah.
I have
It's
a
funny.
question. Oh, sorry.
Go right ahead.
This is for Emily and Carly. Sounds like you have a great relationship with Mindy and her team. Are there other partnerships or relationships that you've started that have helped you along the way with this program?
Well, I spoke to our partnership with Productive Alternatives, which has been incredibly useful within the community, and we really adore that partnership. But this being, I think we were part of, with this program being new, Northern Contours has been a part of the program before the program was a program. So
before there was a program, right?
Yeah. So as far as like, we're excited about the partnership because of the additional resources that and the doors that it open as far as communication, hoping to help the employee feel more supported as far as being able to loop in Amy Johnson or Mindy, or, if they have a mentor, coach, being able to get all of those communications just to continue kind of breaking down the barriers that someone recently, a second chance worker might feel fearful of in the beginning, so that we have kind of a process laid out to help make them comfortable and set them up for success with Northern Contours.
Nice.
I just think get yourself out there and connections. I mean, groups like this are great because there's many different resources, right? And we don't even often know them, and it's hard for me maybe to right now even tell you all of them, but it often comes from just conversations. And then all of a sudden, Amy Johnson and I have had these conversations where she's helped get me in connection with somebody else who gets me in connection with someone else, so the sky really is the limit.
Nice. Well, I think it's interesting that either of you didn't just bring up specific organizations or entities right away. What that tells me is that this is probably easier work than a lot of employers think. That there's less moving parts and thus less things that can go wrong. That's great. Thank you very much. Thanks again, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, James.
I
And
can
Carly,
add.
maybe. Oh, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
No, I just want to add, because I think maybe Lund and Northern Contours do great work, and maybe they're being modest, but I know that both of them work with transition houses. And so there's like Perm 180 and the Matthew House and the Barber House and our halfway houses. And so being in contact with those individuals, and I've spoke to leaders of those houses as well and those organizations, and they speak highly of our justice involved friendly employers. I think those relationships all matter.
Yep.
Yeah, very good point.
Thanks, Amy.
Carly, to go back to the kind of any advice for other employers that are considering being how to be more friendly towards second chance workers.
When Emily was talking, I was listening to your answer and literally was going to say that was beautiful. So, and then you said beautiful, and I agree. Absolutely agree. I think you never know. So the first layer usually that we peel back of getting to know somebody has another layer and another layer and another layer. So just build that relationship, go into it open-minded, allow yourself and coach your leadership team and the rest of your employees to do the same. Judgment is a tough thing, and try the hardest not to do it.
Great answer too. All right. Any other questions from the audience for like I said, any of our speakers today, either Amy, Mindy, Emily, or Carly. Right. Well, if we don't have any questions, like we mentioned, we do a follow-up note, so we'll send out the recording of our conversation today, just for you to, if there's any nuggets in there that you want to go back and reference, or share it with someone who wasn't able to join today. So we'll send that out. And then additionally, any resources, like Emily mentioned, potentially sharing a background check policy. So we'll share that as well with just some key takeaways from today. But feel free, as we always say, feel free to reach out to either of us, or any of us at the county. Carly or Emily, I'm sure, would be happy to share more. And Mindy, like I said already once, is a really great resource among our larger probation team here at the county as well. So she's just one. There are others here. Any last call for questions? Otherwise, thanks again for joining today. We always appreciate folks hopping on and joining us for an hour of learning. Amy Johnson.
Yeah, I just have something I need to say. So something that we talk about here at the county too, these people that I will be working with, the program participants, they will be referred to me by our internal caseworkers, as I mentioned. So that means that they don't have one person in their corner, they have two people in their corner. And so when I contact you as an employer to help, I don't want you to look at it as just an ask, because I sit in these department meetings and talk about the level of impact that this work is going to have on many layers in the homes of these program participants, with their families, and then with their caseworkers. It just gives me goosebumps sometimes thinking about how much that impacts. So it's really exciting work. So when I ask you, if you could help, I would just love for you to give that second chance. And contact me anytime.
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, and I did just put up emails on the screen here too. Feel free to reach out to any of us. And Carly and Emily's email will be on the follow-up as well. So thanks again for jumping on today. We appreciate everyone taking the time, and we'll look forward to next quarter.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Thank you.